Hey everyone, welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network. I'm Melissa Ash. Hope you guys are having a fantastic Wednesday so far. It is August 15th, 2018, and we're getting ready for the White House press briefing with Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders. Really interesting because we just had one yesterday, so surprise there. Doing them back to back, but of course that means she has something important to share with the media and the country, which will be really good. Yesterday we heard Director McKeag of the POWMIA agency, so today it'll probably just be Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders speaking, and I want to know what you guys think she's going to talk about today. So please let me know right here in the YouTube chat. You can also message me, of course, on Twitter at AlyssaRSBN, and I will be checking those Facebook comments too, just to see what you guys think. Before we get started, wanted to give a quick shout out to some of our moderators here in the chat room. Barbara Braley is here, Guinevere. Let's see who else is here today. We have a lot of members here as well. JCDM, History B, Zoom, Nate Skate, welcome. Hope you all are doing fantastic. Some regulars, the British Patriot, Rhett. So glad to have you guys with us today. And I am going to check over on the YouTube chat and the Facebook chat, just to make sure you guys don't have any questions over here. Okay, let me check out your comments on the Facebook chat. Greg Ash is here. My dad just joined. Hey Dad, hope you are having a great day so far. And let's see. Julie Paland Prescott says, whatever Sarah says, you can be sure it will be awesome. Yes, thank you, Julie. And Vicky D'Amata, who is a top fan over on Facebook, said, hopefully arrest of Peter Strzok. That's a great comment. Darlene Lieber Dawson said, confirming remains from Korea are Americans. Hopefully they are. They talked about that yesterday, how they are beginning that testing right now. And Vicky D'Amata said, taking down of the deep state. Tina Marie says, I like Sarah. She is the best press secretary ever. She definitely is. And Faye Hyde, she is expected to come to the stand at 2 p.m. Eastern time. So a little late now. We're waiting for her to come out just any minute now. And let's see, reading your comments right now. And I hope you guys are doing well. Hopefully you tuned in last night to my late night election primaries. That was a great time. Almost made it to midnight to see almost all of the nominees chosen. It was a lot of fun. And President Trump tweeted out some congratulations this morning. And so I'm wondering if Press Secretary Sarah Sanders will talk about some of those as well. And I want to show you guys some of that congratulatory tweets he sent out just this morning. So I'm going to switch over. Hopefully you can kind of see them right here. He tweeted out great Republican election results last night. So far, we have the team we want, 8 for 9 in special elections, red wave. And then he tweeted out, congratulations to Leah Vukmir of Wisconsin on your great win last night. You beat a very tough and good competitor and will make a fantastic senator after winning in November against someone who has done very little. You have my complete and total endorsement. And then right after that, he tweeted out Jeff Johnson of Minnesota had a big night in winning the Republican nomination for governor against a very strong and well-known opponent. Thanks for all of the support you showed me. You have my complete and total endorsement. You will win in November. And then he tweeted out, congratulations to Brian Steele on a wonderful win last night. You will be replacing a great guy in Paul Ryan, and your win in November will make the entire state of Wisconsin very proud. You have my complete and total endorsement. And a couple more congratulatory tweets. He said Pete Stauber won big last night in Minnesota, a big star in hockey. He will be an even bigger star in politics. It all begins with a win in November. Pete has my complete and total endorsement. And then he tweeted out, it is about time that Connecticut had a real and talented governor. Bob Stefanowski is the person needed to do the job. Tough on crime, Bob is also a big cutter of taxes. He will win in November and make a great governor, a major difference maker. Bob has my total endorsement. And then the numbers were finally in from the primary last week. He said, my friend and very early supporter Chris Kobach won the Republican nomination for governor of Kansas last night in a tough race against a very fine opponent. Chris will win in November and be a great governor. He has my complete and total endorsement. And I saw one of you over on Facebook, Bonnie Dilbeck, asking what was the final outcome in Ohio. That special election was actually last week, and Troy Balderson took the seat for 12th Congressional District in the House over Danny O'Connor. So those are all of his congratulatory tweets. And yesterday we heard a lot of questions about his former White House aide Omarosa, and so hopefully we're not hearing those questions again today. She still is all over the media, but he has not tweeted out anything about her today, so that's good. However, he did wish Maxine Waters a happy birthday. He said happy birthday to the leader of the Democratic Party, Maxine Waters. And so we are expecting her to take the stand any minute now. So stay tuned for that. She may be asked about Turkey again. She may be asked about the remains of the American heroes brought home from North Korea. And I'm going to be checking my Twitter too throughout the broadcast. just to make sure you guys don't have any questions specifically about this White House press briefing. So I'm pulling that up right now. Yes, that's good. Over on Facebook, Lynn Matthews said, let's hope she gets asked about Iran. But I do want to know your thoughts and what you guys think she might talk about. So please, please comment them right here over on the YouTube chat, and you can send them to me on Twitter as well, at AlyssaRSBN. JC said turkey, turkey, turkey. RSBN moderator, or mod mom, said nah, they won't ask intelligent questions. Almost all will be Omarosa. British Patriot said more questions about Turkey would be good too. And hopefully not. David Madrid said it will be another bash Trump session. Definitely hope not, but that does happen a lot in these White House press briefings. And let's see, that's good. Amanda Williams Ramsey said, I wish they'd jump on voter ID requirements for all. And let's see, I want to... Lynn Matthews said, how is the progress going with the real estate of with the release? How is the progress going with the release of Pastor Andrew Brunson? I'm going to share some information on that with you guys while we wait. Turkey has actually rejected the second appeal to release U.S. Pastor Andrew Brunson. And over on YouTube, David Madrid donated $5 and said, just because. Thank you so much, David. Really appreciate you and all of your support. And that will definitely help us get to our next rally this coming Tuesday in Charleston, West Virginia, our next President Trump rally, which we're very excited to go to. So I'm going to share some information with you guys on the New York Times, from the New York Times, on how Turkey has not released U.S. Pastor Andrew Brunson yet while we wait. And this is updated, it's from today. So Turkey pushed back against pressure from the United States today, rejecting a second legal appeal to release American Pastor Andrew Brunson and sharply raising tariffs on American goods in retaliation to the punitive levies announced by President Trump last week. And real quick, I'm going to get a graphic ready. Hold on. Okay, just wanted to get things ready real quick for when we do switch to the White House press briefing. Okay, everything is up and ready to go now. Sorry about that. So Andrew Brunson, who asked a court to free him on health grounds, was moved to house arrest last month after his initial detention 22 months ago on charges of aiding terrorist groups touched off a diplomatic dispute between the United States and Turkey. And the dispute over his situation precipitated the imposition of American tariffs, which have been met with retaliatory measures from Turkey and contributed to an economic crisis in the country. And over 20 American citizens, including Mr. Brunson and 3 Turkish employees of the United States diplomatic mission in Turkey, have been detained over the last 2 years. So the Americans have been prosecuted mostly on terrorism charges under the state of emergency imposed after a failed coup in July 2016. But Mr. Brunson are Turkish Americans. All but Mr. Brunson are Turkish Americans, and under Turkish law, they're treated as Turkish citizens, which makes it more difficult for the American authorities to advocate on their behalf. So several remain in prison. Some have been convicted and released under judicial control pending appeal, and others are under house arrest or travel bans, unable to leave the country. So separately, another court on Wednesday ordered the release of the chairman of Amnesty International in Turkey after he spent 14 months in jail on terrorism charges. And that decision brought some relief to rights organizations and European countries that have long lobbied for his release, even though the charges have not been dropped. Amnesty International welcomed the decision to release the chairman, Taner Kilic, a Turkish citizen. And in a statement, they said, "We are overjoyed at this news. It has taken us more than a year of campaigning and struggle to get here, but it appears that Taner will be finally freed." And the contrasting court decisions came as the Turkish government ramped up the trade dispute. Ankara said it was sharply raising tariffs on United States-made alcohol, cars, and tobacco after President Trump tweeted last week that he was doubling levies on Turkish steel and aluminum. So Turkey's banking regulator has announced measures that offered some reliefs for banks, and President Tayyip Erdogan has called for a ban on American electronics products. So the Turkish lira, which at one point lost a third of its value against the dollar, in a matter of days strengthened against the American currency for a second day in a row on Wednesday. And the Trump administration has pressed hard for the release of Mr. Brunson, an evangelical pastor who has lived in the Turkish coastal city of Izmir for 23 years and who ran the Resurrection Church in Izmir. American officials say he's innocent of all charges. So Washington ordered financial sanctions against the Turkish Interior Minister and Justice Minister after Turkey prolonged Mr. Brunson's detention in July. And days later, the Turkish lira began its precipitous fall, worsened by President Trump's announcements of additional tariffs. And Jeffrey Havenier, the American charge d'affaires in Turkey, posted on Twitter on Monday that he had visited Mr. Brunson and his wife Noreen at their home, and he called on the Turkish authorities to resolve the cases of the Americans and the 3 consular employees in a fair and transparent manner. So most of the detainees were swept up in the government crackdown after the coup and are accused of having links to the movement of Fethullah Gulen, the Islamic preacher who lives in self-imposed exile in Pennsylvania. And he's accused by the Turkish government of instigating the coup attempt, a charge that he denies. So Turkey has requested Mr. Gulen's extradition from the United States, but Washington has not moved on the request. Diplomats concur that Gulen followers were among the leaders of the coup attempt, but say there is little evidence of Mr. Gulen's involvement that would satisfy a court. And American officials have accused Turkey of detaining the American citizens and consular employees as leverage in the dispute. So among those remaining in prison is Serkan Gölj. He's 38 years old, and he's a NASA research scientist who was vacationing with relatives in Turkey in the summer of 2016. And Mr. Gölj was convicted in February of having links with a terrorist organization, namely the Gulen movement, and sentenced to 7.5 years in prison. Washington has said that he was convicted without credible evidence, but the Turkish government has defended his trial and sentence, and Mr. Gölj is appealing. His wife Kubra, also a Turkish American, is barred from traveling outside Turkey. And wanted to give a quick shout out over on YouTube. We just received a $10 donation from Ernie Hurd. Thank you so much, Ernie. That will definitely help us get to our next rally this coming Tuesday in Charleston, West Virginia. So another Turkish American couple working in a private university in Western Turkey have been sentenced to 10 years in prison, also for links to a terrorist organization. And the husband, a business administrator, remains under high security detention at the Sinkin prison complex, where Mr. Brunson spent some of his detention. So the wife, who has asked that their names not be published for fear of affecting their cases, has been released because she has a small child pending an appeal. And if their sentences are upheld by the Supreme Court, she will have to serve her term in prison. Others too have been prosecuted include 2 brothers from Pennsylvania, Ismail Kul, a chemistry professor at Widener University, and his brother, Mustafa Kul, a real estate agent. And they were arrested in August 2016 at their home in Bursa in northwest Turkey during a summer vacation. They were accused of being members of the Gulen movement and of playing a part in the failed coup. And Ismail Kul had lived in the United States since 1994.
She's coming out.
He received a master's degree, but right now we are going to switch to Sarah Sanders, and
I'd like to
thank you,
begin by
Beamer.
reading a statement from the President. As the head of the executive branch and commander-in-chief, I have a unique constitutional responsibility to protect the nation's classified information, including by controlling access to it. Today, in fulfilling that responsibility, I have decided to revoke the security clearance of John Brennan, former director of the Central Intelligence Agency. Historically, former heads of intelligence and law enforcement agencies have been allowed to retain access to classified information after their government service, so that they can consult with their successors regarding matters about which they may have special insights and as a professional courtesy. Neither of these justifications supports Mr. Brennan's continued access to classified information. First, at this point in my administration, any benefits that senior officials might glean from consultations with Mr. Brennan are now outweighed by the risks posed by his erratic conduct and behavior. Second, that conduct and behavior has tested and far exceeded the limits of any professional courtesy that may have been due to him. Mr. Brennan has a history that calls into question his objectivity and credibility. In 2014, for example, he denied to Congress that CIA officials under his supervision had improperly accessed the computer files of congressional staffers. He told the Council of Foreign Relations that the CIA would never do such a thing. The CIA's Inspector General, however, contradicted Mr. Brennan directly, concluding unequivocally that agency officials had indeed improperly accessed congressional staffers' files. More recently, Mr. Brennan told Congress that the intelligence community did not make use of the so-called Steele dossier in an assessment regarding the 2016 election, an assertion contradicted by at least 2 other senior officials in the intelligence community and all of the facts. Additionally, Mr. Brennan has recently leveraged his status as a former high-ranking official with access to highly sensitive information to make a series of unfounded and outrageous allegations, wild outbursts on the internet and television about this administration. Mr. Brennan's lying and recent conduct, characterized by increasingly frenzied commentary, is wholly inconsistent with access to the nation's most closely held secrets and facilities, the very aim of our adversaries, which is to sow division and chaos. More broadly, the issue of Mr. Brennan's security clearance raises larger questions about the practice of former officials maintaining access to our nation's most sensitive secrets long after their time in government has ended. Such access is particularly inappropriate when former officials have transitioned into highly partisan positions and seek to use real or perceived access to sensitive information to validate their political attacks. Any access granted to our nation's secrets should be in furtherance of national, not personal interest. For this reason, I've also begun to review the more general question of the access to classified information by government officials. As part of this review, I am evaluating action with respect to the following individuals: James Clapper, James Comey, Michael Hayden, Sally Yates, Susan Rice, Andrew McCabe, Peter Strzok, Lisa Page, and Bruce Orr. Security clearances for those who still have them may be revoked, and those who have already lost their security clearance may not be able to have it reinstated. It is for the foregoing reasons that I have exercised my constitutional authority to deny Mr. Brennan access to classified information, and I will direct appropriate staff of the National Security Council to make the necessary arrangements with the appropriate agencies to implement this determination. With that, I'll take your question. Jonathan.
Sir, first I've got a question I wanted to ask you, but first just to follow up on that. It seems like everybody that you mentioned has been a political critic of the president. Is he going after his political opponents with this?
No, if there were others that weren't, that we deemed necessary, we would certainly take a look and review those as well.
Okay, I want to ask you about something the president's attorney said. Rudy Giuliani said of the special counsel Robert Mueller needs to write the damn report so we can see it and rebut it. And he said if it's not written within the next 2 or 3 weeks, quote, we will just unload on him like a ton of bricks. Is the president okay with his attorney threatening the special counsel in this way?
Certainly, we've made clear we'd like to see this wrap up. For questions specific about comments by Mr. Giuliani, I'd refer you back to him.
Was that authorized by the president?
Once again, for questions specific about the investigation, particularly comments from Rudy Giuliani, I'd refer you back to him to address those. Jeff?
Hey, Sarah, following up on John's question, how is this announcement by the president, how can Americans not interpret that as a getting back against his critics? And isn't it also an attempt to curtail their freedom of speech by penalizing them for being critical on television?
Not at all. The president has a constitutional responsibility to protect classified information and who has access to it. And that's what he's doing, is fulfilling that responsibility in this action. This is action only specific to Mr. Brennan, and the others are currently under review.
Is this the kind of precedent he wants to set for future presidents when his administration is out of office? And why are there no Republicans on that list?
Once again, if we deemed it necessarily, we would certainly look into that and be happy to review those. Justin?
I wanted to ask about Turkey, but just to buttonhole on what Jeff said, I guess the reason people would say that this argument strains credibility is there's obvious examples, even from this administration. Your former national security advisor has admitted to lying to the FBI. Why is this only a list of Democrats who have been critical of the administration, and why should Americans have confidence that you are taking this seriously if there's not a single Republican on that list?
Again, certainly we would look at those if we deemed it necessary, and we'll keep you posted if that list gets updated.
So on Turkey, Turkey announced today that they're going to slap tariffs on about $1 billion of American goods. So I'm wondering if you have a response to that, and if there's any discussion internally about retaliating towards that, continuing to escalate this.
Yeah, the tariffs from Turkey are certainly regrettable and a step in the wrong direction. The tariffs that the United States placed on Turkey were out of national security interest. Theirs are out of retaliation. I'm not going to get ahead of anything on what we may or may not do in an effort to respond, but certainly we don't support Turkey's decision to retaliate against us protecting our national security interest.
An appeals court in Turkey today denied Pastor Brunson's appeal to try to be released. Does the administration view that as a new setback, or as sort of maintaining the status quo?
We feel that Turkey, and specifically President Erdogan, have treated Pastor Brunson, who we know to be a very good person and a strong Christian who's done nothing wrong, very unfairly, very badly, and it's something that we won't forget in the administration. Let's move on. Jake, go ahead.
Thank you, Sarah. So the administration has put up a robust defense of Pastor Brunson, but at the same time, there are tens of thousands of Christians in North Korea who have been imprisoned almost exclusively because of their religion. Open Door USA considered North Korea to be the #1 country when it comes to persecution of the Christians. Is this something that the administration has also been looking into?
Certainly, we would like to see any individual persecuted for their Christian beliefs or imprisoned released. Again, we've been working with North Korea on a number of fronts. That's something we'd certainly like to see them change their behavior on. I know it's been discussed, and again, certainly something we'd like to see their behavior changed on. Sorry, Jake, I gotta keep.
Just to follow up.
Go ahead.
Here's my question. Although territory held by ISIS has been reduced by over 90%, a recent UN report suggests that as many as 30,000 ISIS members still exist in Iraq and Syria. So, first of all, what's the administration's take on this specific UN report? And secondly, what would the administration consider an overall victory against ISIS?
We'd like to see every single member of ISIS defeated across the globe. I think that would be the ultimate victory. John, go ahead.
Thanks a lot, Sarah. Closing arguments are taking place across the river in Alexandria for the tax fraud trial of Paul Manafort. And in mid-June, the president said that he felt badly for Mr. Manafort and that he believes he's being treated unfairly. Is the president still friends with Mr. Manafort? When was the last time you spoke with Mr. Manafort?
I'm not aware of any recent conversations that they've had. Blake?
I believe he's being treated unfairly.
I think that the president's made that clear in his previous comments. I don't have anything to add beyond that at this point. Blake, go ahead.
Sarah, thank you. You just said a couple minutes ago that the increased tariff levels with Turkey were out of the national security interest, but when the president announced it on Twitter last week or earlier this month, he said, quote, at the time, he said, "Our relations with Turkey are not good at this time." The suggestion there being that this has to do with the pastor that is being held in Turkey. Simply put, if Pastor Brunson is allowed to leave Turkey, do those tariff levels go away? Is that kind of the deal that could be in place?
No,
Is that a deal that could be on the table?
the tariffs that are in place on steel would not be removed with the release of Pastor Brunson. The tariffs are specific to national security. The sanctions, however, that have been placed on Turkey are specific to Pastor Brunson and others that we feel are being held unfairly, and we would consider that at that point.
What, in the interest of national security, what's changed over the last month or so with Turkey that you're justifying national security?
Again, the president's been clear about the steel and aluminum industries, steel particularly in this case, that those are industries that must be protected. We must have the ability to reach certain levels of manufacturing of those products here in the United States for the purposes of national security. John?
Thank you, Sarah. I was going to ask about Turkey, but based on your opening statement, I have to point out that the attorneys for former Director Comey and former Deputy Director McCabe say that their passes were automatically demagnetized the day that they were separated from their offices. Two others, Mr. Clapper and General Hayden, have said they do not use the pass at all. And also, it's my understanding from an historical standpoint, this would be the first time the president himself removed the passes from anybody, that has normally been done by agency heads or immediate superiors to people. Have you considered all these things in the process you say you're going to prove?
Again, the other individuals, those are being reviewed, and that determination will be made at a later date. Those that have already been revoked, it would be for the purpose of reviewing whether or not they should be reinstated or not. Major.
Just so I understand the standard the president is applying, you outlined two areas of either contradictory or erroneous testimony from Brennan. Is that the only standard by which this administration is asserting he should have his security clearance revoked?
Again, I laid out the reasons in the opening statement specific to Director Brennan.
Right.
The others are currently under review. I don't have any specifics on this at this point.
Is that the standard? If you give erroneous testimony, you say something you have to correct at a certain date in the future. If you work for this administration, for example, does that mean you could lose your security clearance?
My understanding is this is being looked at on a case-by-case basis, which is why each individual is being reviewed and determination made at that
Does this
point.
administration have any reason to believe or evidence to suggest Brennan has misused classified information or monetized his access to it, as was alleged earlier by this administration?
Again, I've laid out the reasons for the decision that was made on this specific instance. We'll continue to review the other actions. Andrew?
Could we assume by the absence of you not saying those things, you didn't find any evidence of that?
No, I wouldn't make any assumptions. I'm telling you what the decision was based off on in this case. Andrew?
Thank you very much. I wanted to follow up on a question yesterday about Afghanistan. Today there was another suicide attack in Kabul which killed 37 people in a school. A military base in the north has been overrun by the Taliban. They have also seized parts of the eastern provincial capital. Why do you think President Trump's strategy in Afghanistan is working?
As always, we're going to continue to review and look at the best ways to move forward. I'll leave it to the Department of Defense to get into specifics about tactical situations on the ground. What I can tell you is that we're committed to finding a political solution to end the conflict in Afghanistan. We're exploring all avenues for dialogue and close coordination with the Afghan government. We're going to continue to do that. If we have announcements or changes in the policy, we'll certainly let you know. Peter?
I'll follow up on the Turkey question, if I may. Have you guys assessed whether the liquidity situation in Turkey's financial sector is a risk in light of the fall of the lira? It's fallen like a quarter in the last 3 or 4 days.
Certainly, we're monitoring the situation with respect to the Turkish economy and the decline of the lira, but Turkey's economic problems, those are part of a long-term trend, something of its own making and not the result of any actions the United States has taken. Sarah?
Thank you, Sarah. One of the individuals that you listed on that list of clearance that is under review is Bruce Ord. He's a current employee of the Department of Justice. So instead of putting him under the review, does the president believe he should be fired?
I don't have any personnel announcements on that front. I can only speak to this specific case.
Why just put a security clearance under review, which would render him unable to do his job and not just fire him?
Once again, I don't have any personnel announcements on that front. I can just tell you we're looking into that specific matter. Peter, sorry, I called on you earlier.
Thank you, Sarah. If people who criticize the president publicly on TV or public in their criticisms, are they at greater risk of losing their security clearances than people who stay silent?
Once again, this is looked at on a case-by-case basis, and we'll do an individual review and make that determination. Kevin?
Thank you, Sarah. A question about the return of lawmakers on Capitol Hill, and then a follow-up very quickly. Now that they're back, can you sort of lay out the White House strategy for moving forward with this agenda? We've talked about wall funding. Obviously, a lot of people are very curious about the Kavanaugh nomination moving forward, DACA and other issues. Is there a strategy in place to begin the work with lawmakers now that they're back?
Certainly, we have continued ongoing conversations on a number of fronts with lawmakers, even while they were not here in Washington. We are happy that the hearing dates have been set for Justice Kavanaugh, and we look forward to seeing him get confirmed. Catherine?
My very quick follow-up was, first of all, you didn't mention anything about a possible shutdown. Is that still something that the president is continuing? And my follow-up is going to be on the Farm Bill. There are a great number of people in a great number of states that are curious about this work requirement the USDA is trying to implement. In some places, they already have it. They say you have to work. In other areas, you don't have that requirement. Is that something the White House still supports?
Something we still support in terms of a shutdown. I don't have any announcements on that front. We certainly still want to see a lot of things happen. We'd love for Congress to actually do its job, particularly when it comes to immigration. We have a completely broken system, and we'd like to see them work with us to fix it. Catherine?
Thank you, Sarah.
I don't have any updates for you on that front right now. Okay. Catherine?
Omarosa Manigault Newman was the highest-ranking African-American staffer in the West Wing. No black...
She actually didn't work in the West Wing, but go ahead.
No staffer has been appointed at that level since her absence. Can you tell us exactly how many African-American staffers there are in this building? And is it a priority for the administration to reflect the diversity of the country?
Certainly, as I addressed yesterday, we value diversity, not just at the White House, but throughout the entire administration. And we're going to continue trying to diversify the staff. We have a large number of diverse staffers from various backgrounds, both race, religion, gender.
How many staffers are there in this building?
Look, I'm not going to go through and do a count. The same way I'm not going to do a sit down and count on the staffers that are in your news organizations.
13% of the country is African American.
And we would love to diversify our staff and continue to do so. We do think it's important. We're going to continue to work to make that happen. Raquel?
Sarah, thank you very much. About the election last night, we are seeing the Democrats embracing a more diversity, choosing Muslims, also candidates, transgender candidates, rejecting president's agenda. So my question is, what do you think will be the impact of his agenda and also these recent controversies about race and minorities on the election in November?
Again, I think people are looking at the policies that the individuals are implementing and how those are going to affect those communities and whether or not it's actually going to help individuals, people across this country. That's what we're looking at. That's what we're focused on. That's what we're going to continue to do. I'm going to take one last question. Amen.
Thanks, Sarah. I'd like to ask you a couple questions about the president's recent comments, if I could. One is on Harley-Davidson. The president commented earlier in the week, many Harley-Davidson owners plan to boycott the company if manufacturing moves overseas. Great. Is the President of the United States endorsing a boycott of an iconic American company here?
Look, the President has made his feelings on that very clear. The President's focus is on making sure that we get good trade deals and that we keep business and industry here in the United States.
Does he want to see a boycott of Harley, though?
I think he'd rather see them put all their companies back here in the United States and build all of their great machines here in this country. Thanks so much, guys. Have a great day.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for tuning in to that White House press briefing with Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders today on August 15th, 2018. It was pretty quick, so I won't have too long of a post show. I'm going to go through some of the highlights, some things she talked about today, and of course I want to hear your comments as well. You know, different issues she talked about, different issues that reporters asked. If you want to know more about any of them, please comment right here, or even better yet, message me on Twitter at AlyssaRSBN, and I'll be able to see that immediately. It won't get lost in the chat, and I will get to answer your questions. So thank you so much for tuning in. I'm going to go through some of those remarks with you. So first, she had a very strong opening statement. I see some of you guys commenting about that right now, where she revoked the security clearance of John Brennan, the ex-CIA director. And she said that Brennan leveraged his status as a high-ranking official. And she also said that the access of classified information for these government officials are being reviewed. Comey, McCabe, Lisa Page, Clapper, Bruce Orr, and many others. And a reporter started out by asking her, he said, everyone you mentioned is a political critic of the president. Is he targeting those? And she said, no, she said, no, that not all of those mentioned were political critics of the president. And she said that the president has a constitutional responsibility to protect classified information. And then another reporter asked her about Turkey, just like you guys guessed. They said, Turkey said they're going to slap tariffs on American goods. Any retaliation on that? And she said that the tariffs are a regrettable decision of Turkey and a step in the wrong direction, and we do not support their decision. And another reporter asked her, they said thousands of Christians are in North Korea. It's been ranked as the #1 country persecuting Christians. Is the administration working on this? And why is the administration looking at those persecuted in Turkey and not North Korea? And Secretary Sanders said, this is something we'd like to see changed. There have been talks about this. And when asked about ISIS, she said, we'd like to see every single member of ISIS defeated. And another reporter asked her, they said, is President Trump still friends with Paul Manafort? When was the last time they spoke? And they asked about President Trump's remarks earlier that Manafort was being treated unfairly. And Secretary Sanders said that she was not aware of them speaking recently. And another reporter asked, they said, if Pastor Brunson is allowed to leave Turkey, do the tariffs on steel go away? And she said no, because the tariffs on steel are of a national security interest, but the sanctions placed on Turkey would be removed. And another reporter asked her, they said, why do you think President Trump's strategy in Afghanistan is working? And she said, we're exploring all avenues of communication with the Afghan government. And another reporter asked her, they said, those who criticize the president on TV, are they more likely to lose their security clearance? And she said this is on a case-by-case basis. And another reporter asked her, they said, you didn't mention anything about a possible shutdown in a farm bill. And Secretary Sanders said, no announcements on a shutdown. We want Congress to do its job, especially when it comes to immigration. no updates on the farm bill. And I see some of you asking what Joe is doing behind me. He is actually packing for our next rally with our new equipment. We got a lot of new equipment, new camera, new mic, and a new live view unit. So that feed should hopefully be a lot better. So stay tuned for that on Tuesday as we travel to Charleston, West Virginia. It is going to be so much fun. I'm so excited. I haven't been to West Virginia soon, really not since driving through it to visit family in Pennsylvania. So I'm really excited to actually spend some time there. So, and of course, inspired by former White House aide Omarosa, another reporter asked Secretary Sanders how many African American staffers are there in the building. And Sarah Sanders said, "We value diversity. We have a large number of diverse staffers from different religions, backgrounds, genders, and we would love to continue to diversify our staff." And we just got a $5 donation from Micah Messer, one of our cameramen. Thank you so much, Micah. And he said, "Please support RSBN." Thank you, Micah. Really appreciate you and all your hard work and all you've done to help the company grow. So another reporter asked Secretary Sanders, she said, "It seems, after watching and staying tuned to the election last night, many Democrats are choosing Muslim candidates and a transgender candidate, and kind of what's going on with that, and why is it more on the Democratic side and not the Republican side?" And Sarah Sanders said, "We are looking at the policies that the people support and not just those different qualities they may have." And then the last question, a reporter quickly asked her, is the president going to boycott Harley Davidson if they move to another country? And she said that she couldn't speak on whether he was going to boycott them or not, but he wants to see them all come back to the U.S. He wants them to stay in the U.S. And John NPS just asked on YouTube, does PayPal also deduct from the donations? They just take about 10% of your donation, whereas on YouTube, they keep 30% of the donation. So it is a lot less. And speaking of that, I do want to tell you guys, especially those that are new, how you can support RSBN, and first of all, why it's important. Just kind of want to tell you the mission of Right Side Broadcasting Network. So we are actually able to travel to political rallies all around the country, President Trump's rallies, and we show you guys the crowds. That is what RSBN became famous for back during that 2016 election, really just panning the crowds, showing you the thousands of people that are there that the mainstream media is not reporting on. So we show you the crowds, we get in the middle of the crowds, and we really ask people why they're there, why they support President Trump, what he means to them, where they came from, if it's their first rally, different things like that. And so it's a lot of fun to really get to know them. And so as you can imagine, these rallies are really expensive for our team to go. It's a minimum of $5,000 each. That's including where we stay. And we do stay in Airbnbs, so it's cheaper than a hotel, but still, plane tickets, gas, rental cars, food, all those expenses really add up. And so it is really expensive, and we're not able to go without your donations and support. So some different ways you can donate. I know you guys are talking about it right now on YouTube. Thank you so much, and thank you moderators for that information. One way you can donate is just by clicking that $sign down in the corner, and that is on the YouTube chat. and that is our super chat where you're able to donate, and I'll shout it out live during the broadcast. Your name will come up in a bright color with your message, and I'll share it with everyone, of course, as long as it's appropriate. So it's a really fun way to donate and to interact. And of course, you can also donate on our website, rsbnetwork.com/donate. And I will pull that up real quick for you guys and show it to you in case you're not sure how to get there. Okay, so switching over, you just go to our website, rsbnetwork.com, and you can't see it. I apologize. Sometimes it does this, but there is a red bar up at the top, and the fourth tab over says donate. So you just click that donate button, and you can see the different options right here. The first one is to pay with PayPal or a credit card. So you can click that, go through, and you can enter the amount, and then click whether you'd like to donate with PayPal or a debit or credit card. And then also, if you feel a little bit more invested in RSBN, you know, you really like what you're seeing here and you want to help support us, you can actually give a monthly donation through patreon.com. So I'm going to show you guys how to get there, and if you're getting there separately from our website, it is Patreon with an E, patreon.com/RSBN. And you can see right here how you can become a patron. There are different levels, all the way from entry, bronze, silver, gold, platinum, diamond, double diamond, and all access if you're giving $500 or more a month. And Patreon's really fun because you actually get things you get to keep, just like these right side broadcasting hats that you see us wearing here in the corner. And you get pens and pencils, stickers, t-shirts, blankets, just different things to remember RSBN and to remember to watch us throughout the day. So it is definitely a blessing when we're able to receive your support. And also, I'm going to show you guys that last way real quick. If you're not comfortable donating online, we completely understand and respect that. You can send a check directly to RSBN. And you can just send it to our P.O. Box here, and that's 1550 Opelika Road, Suite 6, Box 344 in Auburn, Alabama 36830. So that is definitely a safe way to send your check. We really appreciate that. It was really fun yesterday just going through the mail with Joe, seeing all of your checks, and more importantly, your handwritten letters, just to see your heart behind, you know, why you enjoy RSBN, what we mean to you, and what you want to see more of. So thank you so much to everyone right now. If you're watching, I just want to give a huge shout out to everyone who donated via check yesterday. Really, really appreciate you guys. And let me switch back real quick. Also wanted to give a shout out to our moderators that are in the chat room right now that provide everyone with information and that keep our chat room clean. Thank you so much. We really appreciate you guys. Roger Vega, RSBN moderator, Guinevere, Barbara Braley, I think Real Frank in Florida might have been here. Yes, he was here. And let's see, a lot of regular members too. Gregory Ash, JC, DM, Nate Skate, Christopher Milner, Micah Messer. Thank you guys so much for being here. Really, really appreciate you. And I wanted to give a shout out to our website moderators, to Common Sense, Guinevere, and the new one, Revoke. Hopefully I said that right. Thank you so much for donating. Johnny Ballou said, how can I get an RSBN hat? You can become a patron on patreon.com and donate, or you can enter our next contest we'll have at our next rally on Tuesday, and there may be a hat in that prize pack if you do win. And let's see, just got a $4.99 donation from Tree Climbing, who said, YouTube, this covers our black screen fee. Okay, thank you so much, Tree Climbing. Really appreciate you. Thankfully, we've had no black screens in the stream yet today, and hoping that it stays that way. I'm going to check my Twitter messages real quick, but I also want to see and know about the issues that were discussed today during that White House press briefing. Which ones really stood out to you guys, and which ones do you want to hear more of? Please let me know. You can comment right here. On YouTube, or you can message me on Twitter at AlyssaRSBN. So I want to see, you guys' issues, different things that are important to you that you want me to talk about from that White House press briefing today. But until then, I want to keep going through this New York Times article about Pastor Andrew Brunson and about Turkey and how they've detained different American citizens over the years. So Ismail Kul had lived in the United States since 1994. He received a master's degree and doctorate from Clemson University in South Carolina and owns 2 patents in the United States, according to his resume. So at his trial, which is continuing, Mr. Kul admitted knowing Mr. Gulen, but exposed the shakiness of the government's charges when he explained that it was a member of the governing Justice and Development Party. Amit Aden, the deputy chairman of the president, who first took him to meet the cleric. So he said, in 2010, I met Amit Aden at a culture festival in Philadelphia, and he told this to the court. He said, I had breakfast with him and his detail. They told me that they will see Gulen and suggested that I accompany them. That's how I met Fethullah Gulen. After that, I visited Gulen 4 or 5 times. And we just received a $5 donation from Charles Blecker. Thank you so much for that, Charles. Really appreciate that. He says, thank you for your hard work. These past 2 years have been fantastic. I look forward to your midterm election coverage and Trump rallies. Thank you so much, Charles. Really appreciate you. And yes, British Patriot, I see your comment about reminding people of the Brennan situation and the list of others the POTUS is considering revoking the security clearance of. I will as soon as I finish this up. So we're almost done with this. So of the Turkish employees of the American consular mission, Hamza Uluke, who had worked for 36 years in the American consulate in Adana in southeastern Turkey, was detained in February 2017 and indicted on a charge of having contacts with the Gulen movement and the outlawed Kurdish movement, the PKK, and his trial is continuing. So 2 other employees of the American consulate in Istanbul were also detained and have yet to be indicted. Metin Topaz, who has worked at the mission for the Drug Enforcement Administration for more than 20 years, was arrested on similar charges to Mr. Uluke in October. And days after his arrest, the Istanbul police searched the home of a 3rd employee, Meet Kanturk, who has also worked for years at the Istanbul consulate. and Mr. Kanturk has been placed under house arrest. And the State Department suspended visa services in Turkey in protest at the employee's detention and over the lack of consular access to the jailed American citizens. And Turkey retaliated with a partial suspension of visa services, and several Americans were refused entry at Istanbul at Ataturk Airport in the following weeks, and services eventually resumed, and American consular staff were granted access to the detainees starting in October. So, okay, I want to share with you guys British Patriot. Thank you so much for reminding me. So, Press Secretary Sarah Sanders, her opening statement was actually that the security clearance of ex-CIA Director John Brennan has been removed, and that he has leveraged his status as a high-ranking official. And she said that access of classified information for government officials being reviewed is Comey, McCabe, Lisa Page, Clapper, Bruce Orr, and others. So we'll have to stay tuned and see who else is losing their security clearance. And of course, many reporters had questions about that. Okay, and I'm going to check over on Facebook real quick just to make sure you guys don't have any questions for me here. Charlene Hill asked over on Facebook how to donate, where you keep all of it. You can do that actually by just sending in a check to our address, which is found on our website, rsbnetwork.com/donate. And I want to share with you guys some more background information and just expand a little bit about John Brennan losing his security clearance. And this is from ktts.com. So as I shared with you guys, White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders announced Wednesday that former CIA Director John Brennan's security clearance has been revoked. And she said, as the head, and she was reading a statement from President Trump, as the head of the executive branch and commander-in-chief, I have a unique constitutional responsibility to protect the nation's classified information, including by controlling access to it. Today, in fulfilling that responsibility, I have decided to revoke the security clearance of John Brennan, former director of the Central Intelligence Agency. And back in July, the White House actually announced that it was considering taking such action, which amounts to an unprecedented use of presidential authority to punish political rivals. At the time, critics quickly seized on the announcement, even as those under consideration downplayed the effect losing their clearances might have. And Sanders' statement Wednesday cited the CIA's infiltration of Senate computers during Brennan's time at the helm of the agency as a reason for the decision, adding that Brennan has recently leveraged his status as a former official to make a series of unfounded allegations about the administration, which she called increasingly frenzied commentary. And she read out, "Such access is particularly inappropriate when such officials have transitioned into highly political positions." And Secretary Sanders also said President Trump is reviewing the clearances of James Clapper, James Comey, Michael Hayden, Sally Yates, Susan Rice, Andrew McCabe, Lisa Page. I'm sorry. Yeah. No, you're good. Hey guys, sorry about that. Hope you are all still here. Okay, so gonna keep going. Yes, swoosh for Trump. Brennan did lose his clearance, and we're glad you made it. Glad to have you here in the chat room. So Sarah Sanders said President Trump, like I said, is also reviewing the clearances of James Clapper, James Comey, Michael Hayden, Sally Yates, Susan Rice, Andrew McCabe, Lisa Page, Peter Strzok, and Bruce Orr. And Brennan was definitely a critic. He tweeted out, looks like yesterday, he said, "It's astounding how often you fail to live up to minimum standards of decency, civility, and propriety. Seems like you will never understand what it means to be president, nor what it takes to be a good, decent, and honest person. So disheartening, so dangerous for our nation." And he also tweeted out the day before. We're kind of just going to go through some of his tweets right now. "You're absolutely right. If you were presidential, you would focus on healing the rifts within our nation, being truthful about the challenges we face, showing the world that America is still that shining beacon of freedom, liberty, prosperity, and goodness that welcomes all." And yes, swoosh, this is the only one he revoked, but is considering the list of others that I just mentioned. So back on August 4th, Brennan tweeted, "What responsible and right-thinking adult can point to President Trump as a role model for our youth whenever he spews lies, insults, and polarizing hate speech against fellow Americans? Think of its harmful impact on our young people and the way they talk, act, and treat others." And he also tweeted out on August 1st, "Individuals of conscience who believe in rule of law should denounce this blatant effort to obstruct justice. As President Trump's desperation to protect himself grows, he could turn words into action, prompting a constitutional crisis. Congress must warn Trump of dire consequences." So Secretary Sanders defended the decision to revoke Brennan's security clearance as one aimed at fulfilling the president's constitutional responsibility to protect classified information. And she said the president has a constitutional responsibility to protect classified information, and who has access to it, and that's what he's doing, is fulfilling this responsibility. Okay. And getting some more information about this for you guys from the Washington Post. So Sarah Sanders told everyone today at that White House press briefing, she said the president is exploring the mechanisms to remove security clearance because they politicize and in some cases monetize their public service and security clearances. And she said making baseless accusations of improper contact with Russia or being influenced by Russia against the president is extremely inappropriate, and the fact that people with security clearances are making these baseless charges provides inappropriate legitimacy to accusations with zero evidence. And of course, some were firing back at this. Clapper, a career intelligence officer who served as the director of national intelligence in the Obama administration, described the move by the White House as unprecedented and petty. And Hayden, who was also director of the National Security Agency under Bush, had no comment on Sanders' statement, but he objected to any White House suggestion that he'd done anything that would be grounds for revoking his clearance. And he said he requires a clearance for one proxy board position to protect sensitive U.S. information when dealing with a foreign parent company. And Brennan and Rice also did not respond to the White House announcement. And Nick Shapiro, who is a former top aide to Brennan, said the former CIA director hadn't done any work since leaving government that required a clearance. He said this political attack on career national security officials who have honorably served their country for decades under both Republicans and Democrats in an effort to distract from Mueller's investigation. And Comey's lawyer, David N. Kelly, said the ex-FBI director was read out of his security clearance not long after he left the FBI in mid-2017 after President Trump fired him. So Kelly also said that Comey was offered a limited security clearance last month to review the classified findings of the Justice Department's Inspector General's investigations into his action at the FBI, and declined in part because he didn't want to have access to classified information and then have the president or someone else accuse him of leaking. And Tree Climbing just donated $3.99. Thank you so much, Tree Climbing. Really appreciate that. So McCabe's clearance was deactivated when he was fired from the FBI. According to Melissa Schwartz, who's a spokeswoman for McCabe, and she said McCabe's lawyers were told that that was according to FBI policy. And she wrote on Twitter, "You would think the White House would check with FBI before trying to throw shiny objects to the press corps." So Sanders made the announcement shortly after President Trump met with Senator Rand Paul, who said earlier Monday that he planned to ask the president to revoke Brennan's clearance. And the former CIA director under Obama last week described President Trump's performance at his summit with Putin in Helsinki as treasonous. But in a tweet shortly after Sanders' announcement, Paul appeared to take credit for the president's decision. He said, "I restated to President Trump what I have said in public. John Brennan and others partisans should have their security clearances revoked." And he added, "Public officials should not use their security clearances to leverage speaking fees or network talking head fees." And in a tweet earlier Monday, Paul had questioned whether Brennan was trying to profit off his security clearance by divulging secrets to mainstream media that undermine President Trump. And of course, as you can expect, Democrats immediately criticized the White House announcement. So Representative Adam B. Schiff of California, the top Democrat on the House Intelligence Committee, said punishing Trump's critics would set a terrible new precedent. And an enemies list is ugly, undemocratic, and un-American. There is no length President Trump will not go to. Stifle opposition, wake up GOP. And a member of the Senate Republican leadership voiced skepticism of the White House's actions as well. Senate Majority Whip John Cornyn of Texas said, "I don't know whether they've been abusing their security clearance at all. That's a very serious allegation. I want to see what the results are." And thank you so much, Tree Climbing, for another $4.99 donation. Really appreciate that. And I will try to remember to talk to Joe about that later. Thank you for your comment. And I'm checking Twitter just to make sure that I don't have any more comments or questions for you guys that you may have asked, certain issues that were discussed today during the White House press briefing. And over on Twitter, John Stanton shared a fun fact. He said John Brennan is first former CIA director in history to be stripped of his security clearance. I didn't know that. Thank you so much, John Stanton, for sharing. Really appreciate you. And I want to look also at some other topics Secretary Sanders discussed today and questions she was asked. So stay tuned. I'm going to pull those back up. And we just received a $5 donation from Larry Stokes, who said thank you, RSBN. Thank you so much, Larry. Really appreciate you and all of your support. I know it's not my first time seeing your name here, and that will definitely help us get to our rally next Tuesday. Thank you so much. And right now I'm just doing some research, bear with me, looking at the Harley Davidson situation. Okay, so I'm going to share some information with you guys. This is from just a couple days ago, and this is from Reuters News. So it says, President Donald Trump backed boycotting American motorcycle manufacturer Harley Davidson Inc. on Sunday, the latest salvo in a dispute between the company and Trump over tariffs on steel. And the Wisconsin-based motorcycle manufacturer announced a plan earlier this year to move production of motorcycles for the European Union from the United States to its overseas facilities to avoid the tariffs imposed by the trading bloc in retaliation for President Trump's duties on steel and aluminum imports. And in response, President Trump has criticized Harley Davidson, calling for higher targeted taxes and threatening to lure foreign producers to the U.S. to increase competition. So in a Twitter post, he said many Harley Davidson owners plan to boycott the company if manufacturing moves overseas. Great. Most other companies are coming in our direction, including Harley competitors. A really bad move. U.S. will soon have a level playing field or better. And Harley Davidson has repeatedly declined to comment on Trump's remarks over the course of the dispute, and the company could not be immediately reached for comment on Sunday. So Harley has forecast that the EU tariffs would cost the company about $30 million to $45 million for the remainder of 2018 and $90 million to $100 million on a full year basis. So President Trump met Saturday with a group of bikers who support him, also known as Bikers for Trump, posing for pictures with about 180 bikers at his golf resort in Bedminster, New Jersey, while he was on vacation. And motorcycle companies based outside the United States include Japan's Honda Motor Company and Yamaha Corporation, Europe's BMW and Ducati, as well as India's Hero Motor Corp Ltd. and Bajaj Auto Ltd., among others. And over on YouTube, Zoom said, buy a Mercedes instead. Okay, and I found another perspective for you guys. This is from USA Today. Has a little bit more information. And it was published just 2 days ago. So President Trump says it's great. Some Harley-Davidson motorcycle owners say they will halt future purchases of the bike in response to plans by the Milwaukee-based company to move some production overseas. And President Trump's tweet on Sunday followed a New York Times story that quotes several Harley owners attending the Sturgis motorcycle rally in Sturgis, South Dakota, who say they are angry with the company which plans to move productions of motorcycles destined for the European Union to its international factories in response to tariffs the EU has imposed on its bikes. So that's kind of the reason behind it there. And Harley has said the impact of the 31% tariffs, up from 6% previously, could be $100 million per year on the company, or roughly $2,200 per motorcycle. And the EU tariffs on $3.4 billion worth of U.S. products are in retaliation for duties President Trump has imposed on European steel and aluminum. And Wisconsin Democratic Senator Tammy Baldwin Sunday tweeted that President Trump cannot run our economy with tweets. And while saying nothing, about the president's latest swipe at Harley-Davidson, Republican U.S. Senate candidate Kevin Nicholson quickly issued a tweet of his own, telling Baldwin, "You don't understand our economy." And Kevin Nicholson tweeted out, "We do need better trade deals, not the ones engineered," and this is to Tammy Baldwin, "not the ones engineered by you and other members of the political class. We must bring trade partners back to the table and do away with tariffs. You don't fight for Wisconsin and you don't understand our economy." And Nicholson said, "We do need better trade deals, not the ones engineered by you and other members of the political class." And President Trump has repeatedly bashed Harley-Davidson since June, when company officials announced the production move, which critics have said was already in the works. And President Trump tweeted out back on June 25th, surprised that Harley-Davidson, of all companies, would be the first to wave the white flag. "I fought hard for them, and ultimately they will not pay tariffs selling into the EU, which has hurt us badly on trade, down $151 billion. Taxes, just a Harley excuse. Be patient." Okay, and I'm going to check Twitter too, but I want to hear from you guys. What are some issues? Yes, British Patriot, thank you for responding to Josie, or Jose JC. We are doing a post show on the Sarah Sanders White House press briefing. So if there are any issues that she talked about during that press briefing, please share them with me here on YouTube. You can talk about them in the comments, issues you want me to look into more, or you can send them to me on YouTube at Alyssa RSBN. And for those of you who may have missed that White House press briefing, I am going to go through some highlights with you guys of what she said and questions she was asked as well. So she started out, White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders, talking about revoking the security clearance of John Brennan, the ex-CIA director, and she said that Brennan leveraged his status as a high-ranking official. And she said that access of classified information for other government officials being reviewed include Comey, McCabe, Lisa Page, Clapper, Bruce Orr, Strzok, and others. And a reporter asked her, they said, "Everyone you mentioned is a political critic of the president. Is he targeting those?" And Sarah Sanders said, "No, not all were political critics of the president." And she said that President Trump has a constitutional responsibility to protect classified information. And another reporter asked her, they said, "Turkey said they're going to slap tariffs on American goods. Any retaliation on that?" And Sarah Sanders said tariffs are regrettable and a step in the wrong direction. We don't support their decision. And then another reporter was comparing the Andrew Brunson situation, that U.S. pastor still detained in Turkey right now, to thousands of Christians being detained in North Korea which he said was ranked as the #1 country persecuting Christians. He said, is the administration working on this? And Secretary Sanders said, this is something we'd like to see change. There have been talks about this, but she didn't talk about any action yet that's happened to save persecuted Christians in North Korea. And she said, we'd like to see every single member of ISIS defeated when asked about ISIS. And let's see. Another reporter asked her, is President Trump still friends with Paul Manafort, and when's the last time they spoke? And she said she was not aware of them speaking recently. And then another reporter asked, if Pastor Brunson is allowed to leave Turkey, do the tariffs on steel go away? And she said, no, those tariffs on steel are for national security, but the sanctions would be removed. And another reporter asked her, they said, why do you think President Trump's strategy in Afghanistan is working? And she said, we're exploring all avenues of communication with the Afghan government. And another reporter asked, those who criticize the president on TV, are they more likely to lose their security clearance? And she said, no, this is on a case-by-case basis. And then at the very end of the press conference, she was asked, she said, you didn't mention anything about a possible shutdown and the farm bill. A reporter asked her that. She said no announcements on that government shutdown, but they would like to see Congress doing their job, especially with immigration. And she said she had no updates on the farm bill. And like I said, I want, okay, we just got a question over on YouTube from Dink Radasoiksa. Where can I find a rally schedule? So there is one on President Trump's website. I'll share a link with you here, but they don't announce them all together. Usually they just announce one at a time. So unfortunately, we only know about the next one, which is next Tuesday in Charleston, West Virginia, but we are expecting some right after that. So let me get that link for you. Okay, so it has some information on it, which I'll share with you guys. So it starts at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, and it is Tuesday, August 21st in Charleston, West Virginia. It's at the Charleston Civic Center, located on 200 Civic Center Drive, in Charleston, West Virginia, 25301. And I hope some of you guys who may be in the area or close by enough to drive can come visit us at the rally. That would be so fantastic. Look for us. Usually at least one of us has RSBN gear on, those polos, hats, different things, jackets. You'll be able to recognize us by. JC, I don't know what the capacity is, but let me check for you. Wow, so the first thing I'm seeing is that the capacity is 13,500. So it looks huge, and hopefully we will get to see it filled up. Let me pull up some pictures of it for you guys and show you. Okay, so this is it from the outside. I'm going to show you guys. Looks really pretty. And I'm looking for some pictures on the website too. Looks like they have a renovation concept. And they have an event calendar. Let's see if we can see the Trump rally on it. Okay, it doesn't look like it because it would be right here in August. Today they're having the Enlisted Association of the National Guard. Some better, bigger pictures for you. There's the inside of it. Looks huge. And some construction being done back in September 2017. Outside view of the stairs there. Back inside, this looks like it was a truck rally or car show of some sort. This is back when they had one of the last Barnum and Bailey circuses, if not the last. I want to show you guys, I love this first picture. It's beautiful, where you can really just see the magnitude of seats. About 13,500 seats. So it's going to be a great time. And I'm sure wherever they do the stage, they'll have lots of standing room on the floor as well, as they always do. Yes, and I see your comment, British Patriot, and looks like President Trump just retweeted a statistic I'm going to share with you guys. It is from Rasmussen Reports. So today's real Donald Trump approval ratings among black voters, 36%. This day last year, 19%. Okay. And let me pull this up. I'll share it with you guys real quick. So this is that Rasmussen poll. And it says the Rasmussen Reports daily presidential tracking poll for Wednesday shows that 49% of likely U.S. voters approve of President Trump's job performance and 49% disapprove. The latest figures include 35% who strongly approve of the way President Trump is performing and 41% who strongly disapprove. And this gives him a presidential approval index rating of -6. And you can see his approval rating right here. Back in the beginning of January 17, higher than Obama's. And it looks like they're about the same now. President Trump's is higher. At 49%, and Obama's is 45%. Okay, and I think I am going to wrap it up for you guys now. Thank you so much for tuning in to our White House press briefing and to the post show. Really appreciate each and every single one of you, and for giving me a little bit of your afternoon. Really appreciate it. And make sure to tune in tonight for my nightly news recap at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. It is going to be an absolute blast. And remember to be sending me your news stories to my Twitter at AlyssaRSBN, and I'll be sure to mention those tonight during the broadcast. Thank you so much, and I hope you all have a fantastic afternoon.